In this episode, we interview Brad Milliken, director and co-founder of District Cleanups, an organization on a mission to instill pride and ownership in our collective communities through the removal of trash and frequent engagement with District of Columbia residents. All right, so thanks everyone for tuning into this episode of Greater Than 0%. Today we have Brad Milliken, who is the director and co-founder of District Cleanups. Brad, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so we always start the show by asking the mission statement. So what is the mission of District Cleanups?
Yeah, so District Cleanups wants to live in a world where planned cleanups are necessary. So doing that by showing people what kind of routine engagement looks like when and hosting cleanups and promoting some community ownership.
All right, boom. And we'll get into how you're actually doing that. But before we do, why you? Why is this something that you wanted to dedicate your time to?
Yeah. So we talk about, so my wife and I started District Cleanups, but we talk about how we spontaneously or accidentally started a nonprofit. And the Saturday after January 6th, I'd been in the area in front of the Capitol building and it was trashed. So put a thing on social media saying, hey, I'm going to go pick up some trash. And if anybody could join me, that'd be great. And I think for the why me, why us, I wanted to feel better. I wanted to go, do something that, I don't want to have to live with all this stuff kind of in our community, let alone what it meant for, politics, the nation, all that kind of stuff. But, there was trash in my neighborhood and I wanted to do something about it. So put that call out and it got picked up by a couple DC related Instagram accounts and a bunch of people showed up. And after that, beyond just having the initial kind of push, we found that, folks wanted to come do that kind of work anyway. And on that first day, on January 9th, 2021, folks I had never met before were asking, when's the next cleanup going to be? So we said, I guess we'll have another one.
I guess we'll have another one. Yeah.
That's where we're at. Yeah.
Awesome. That's such a cool inception story that it just like happened.
Yeah.
It was just like responsibility was kind of thrown upon you and you actually acted on it and ran with it.
Yeah, it worked out nicely. And I think one of the things that we've talked about, because we've just had, our 2-year anniversary, that first day after we went and we had the cleanup, we picked up a bunch of stuff. We, fished signs out of the reflecting pool in front of the Capitol building. We found all this like kind of white supremacist propaganda, business cards and stuff.
Yeah.
And we a group of us we were all strangers. We were all kind of, done for the day. And somebody's like, you guys want to go grab a beer? And we all kind of we all kind of sat around and talked about what, the act, and how therapeutic it was for us to go out and clean stuff up. Yeah. And that was the social bit of having a conversation about all that kind of stuff. Never expected it. And here we are.
That sounds like fun. And here we are 2 years later. Exactly. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, over those 2 years, how has it, what has District Cleanups turned into operationally?
Yeah. So, it's, so we're a 501c3. We have kind of a lean team of volunteers that we organize monthly cleanups, and every month we move the cleanup somewhere new in DC. So we try to hit all the different neighborhoods, which is cool and something that we believe in. It's more than just going to the same spot every time. So I think that's been a cool way for people to explore DC. One of the things that, the first time we went to Anacostia in DC, we had folks saying hey, I'd lived here for 5 years and I've never been to this neighborhood. Thanks for giving us a reason to come do it. And so it's kind of become, there's the social aspect of it because, people want to come do something. And then we've had a handful of people that start their own cleanup type of things. And that, that's what we want to see. But but we're still at it. We do a cleanup every month, and it's in a new location. And as far as what does it mean for us operationally? We kind of joke about the 501c3 thing. Let us we can accept donations. We can kind of track money in a way that's not just like us doing it. But like our operating expenses, like it costs us nothing to put something on Instagram and say, hey, meet at this time in this place. And now that we kind of have the equipment, because we burn through trash bags, gloves, buckets, there is the equipment side of it. But it's not like we were like, oh man, how are we gonna do this? Once we kind of reached a critical mass of folks that cared about what we were doing, the actual routine of it has been like pretty simple.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? And I think you touched on it a little bit talking about the day after the DC. What do you think it has meant then and now to the people who do the volunteering? Like you mentioned that it was a way for people to actually do something, and that makes sense for the initial event cleanup that you all did. But how has that kind of evolved over time, and what have you heard from the volunteers that are participating?
Yeah, so I think it's honestly a couple versions of the same thing. I think speaking to the January 6th thing, for whatever it meant for us in a macro sense, I think what it meant for like the city, for what it meant for the District of Columbia was kind of overlooked. And I think there was that therapeutic bit of, hey, like we don't have to, we can continue to make sure that this place is what we want it to be as the folks that live here. And I think there's a version of that persists. And part of it, we think about, it takes no effort to stop and pick up like one cigarette butt or one piece of trash. But when you think about how much trash might be on like a city block, it can be kind of overwhelming. And I think it's a version of the same mindset of, just a little bit of, paying attention and a little bit of, hey, like I can do this. It's a similar way to carry it through.
Yep. And it seems like in addition to, I don't know if you kept the tradition going of getting a beer afterwards, but it sounds like there's a sense of community too that you're building. I'm sure there's some reoccurring folks that come every month, I'm assuming.
Yeah, absolutely. So every month I think when it's nice outside, we'll try to end with like, we have a kickball, we'll try to end with some kind of social activity. Yep. When it's nasty outside, we'll try to meet, we'll have a happy hour somewhere. And I think we've got really like a core group of maybe 40 to 50 people that will be at every cleanup, every location, rain or shine. Yeah. And then beyond that, I think it's a mix of, what neighborhood we're going to be in, how much other folks have shared kind of the word of mouth bit of it. I think there's a bunch of groups where it's like, oh yeah, my office is there. I'm going to get everybody from the office to come through. And, but yeah, I think we that core group of like 50 or so folks, you can pick up a lot of trash with 50 people.
Yeah, absolutely. So before this interview, the previous interview that I recorded, it's not public yet, but we interviewed an organization called For Purpose, and they're a for-profit, they're not a nonprofit, but they're working to remove as many barriers as possible to get people engaged in the nonprofit space and volunteer. And it sounds like you're doing some similar actions of that, where you're just posting on Instagram or sending an email and saying, here's the date, here is the time, once a month. If you're free, please join us. If not, try to come next time or see you next time or one of the next few months. So it seems like a very easy lift in minimal commitment for people. Right. And it's reoccurring, so they know it's going to be there, and it's a fun social event afterwards. So it sounds like it's just a fun tradition for somebody to do. Yeah.
And we've tried to, in a couple instances, like team up with other organizations. There's become, I think, this kind of collective of the cleanup focused nonprofits, and it's, we'll plug their stuff, they'll plug our stuff. There's always going to be another cleanup, which has been cool. It's been a neat community. I think we've seen a lot of people bring dates to our cleanups.
Yeah, heck yeah.
And we know for sure there have been like 2 kind of legit relationships that have gotten started. But
Nice.
there's a couple times where it's like, okay, she always comes, but that guy's new, and some of that's been
Yeah,
really cool.
yeah. It's the test. It's the third date of a relationship. Like, can they hang? Can they give back?
Will you pick up trash with me? Yeah.
Yeah. That's so cool. It's so cool. So usually I also ask our guests, what is the future plan for the organization? And it sounds like you guys are just going to keep month over month doing this activity, and of course, like, your organization will continue on that path. And it sounds like you've also inspired other people to set up their own groups or activities of similar actions. So is that kind of the plan for the next X amount of years? Is just like keep cruising and keep
in the medium term. Yeah, I think in the medium term, showing kind of the proof of the concept.
Yeah,
and that like, hey, we're going to keep holding cleanups. People are going to keep coming, and it's. I think showing that it hasn't lost steam after kind of the spark of the January 6th stuff. That hey, no, this is beyond that, and we've kind of taken our model, and there have been a couple other pop-ups. There's a Northern Virginia cleanups group, and like they also have monthly cleanups. Denver I think has a group, and so I think bridging kind of the medium to long term, we really want to be an open book for like, if it's not that this stuff is super complex, right? See trash, pick it up. That's that's the how to. But as far as how do you approach the kind of the critical mass where it continues to happen?
Yep.
Definitely trying to help other groups pick up some of what I think we've found. And then, I think there's like bigger things with respect to, if we're able to do some like data collection, if we're able to, weigh in on like, if the city wants to talk about where should public trash cans go, I think there is some of that kind of stuff that we have an appetite for. But above all, monthly cleanups.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm going to note that down actually.
Yeah.
Have you been able to, it's been 2 years, right? So you could probably get a rough number of, if you have 40 people coming times 24, maybe add a couple too as well. Cause you said it's sometimes in addition to that core 40 to 50 people. It sounds like y'all are in the thousands of people in terms of who you've engaged. And of course there's been repeat, but I
think this year we've probably averaged like between 150 and maybe 170 people per cleanup. And that's been awesome.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like an army. That's so cool. How do you get that many trash bags and tools? Like,
so we use buckets. To be honest, we have a bunch of like 5-gallon buckets, and we'll put like, 1 bucket per kind of 5 people. Yep. And then as soon as you fill the bucket up, just dump it in any, public trash bin or open public dumpster. Cuts down on the bags, saves us from having to buy stuff. And then, you have the one person that's the bucket holder, and then everybody else goes around.
You do have a system down. This is great. You should, definitely document that and like have a how-to guide if you want to organize a cleanup. I feel like this could catch steam. That's so cool. So for your district, for district cleanups specifically, where can people find you if they are really interested and want to get engaged?
So we're at just district cleanups on Instagram, and that's probably what we're the most active on. We've got a website, districtcleanups.com. We're on some of the other social medias, but those are the main two. So Instagram, and then from the website we have an email list. But that's the primary. Yeah.
Awesome. And when is your next event? So today, this is not going to post today, obviously. Today's March 7th, 2023. When is the next event, and maybe the following event if it's been scheduled yet?
So our next event's going to be this Saturday, so March 11th, and that's going to be at the Tidal Basin, so around like all the memorials for DC. Yeah. And then for Earth Day, April 22nd, we're looking at doing something in the Shaw neighborhood.
Awesome. Man, that's so cool. The last couple of things I want to cover is
Yeah.
how, like for you personally, how have these past 2 years impacted you, like as a person? Like, is it like for me, if I putting myself in your shoes, I'd be like, whoa, like we have hundreds of people month over month come here. Humanity's awesome. Like there is hope. I'm wondering, like how's district cleanups impacted you as a person over these past couple of years?
So I think there's a couple pieces of it. One, being able to say like, hey, I had no intention of this becoming the thing, and being able to stand in front of people and say, hey, like I was just a guy with a roll of trash bags from under the sink. Like you are district cleanups. If it wasn't for the people who came out, like I very much believed like anybody could have done the stuff that I did. It's not like I had the secret sauce. You just got to do it. And that's it. And we talk about trash and it's like, why don't people pick up trash? It's either that nobody notices the stuff that's around them or nobody cares. So, having a reason and showing what it looks like to stop and pick it up. It's not like it's difficult. We just got to do it. And that's, I think being able to say that message in front of people a bunch of times, like, hell yeah, I believe it. And that's a big piece of it. I think too, and this is, in terms of, magnitude, much less, but you can't win the internet. And that is a lesson that I've learned. And, so there's, we're on Reddit and there's the Washington D.C. subreddit and I'll post the cleanup information. I'll usually post a picture. We'll usually do a big group picture and, almost every time, not every time, but almost every time somebody has some snarky comment and I think one, you just got to kill them with kindness and that's not that much trash. And it's like, okay, well, if you don't think that's a lot of trash, we definitely need you to come to our next cleanup. And there's always somebody that's like, I don't understand why you guys are doing this. It's just going to be dirty again. And I wonder if those people bait because like, that's not how any of this works. And just, some of that you can't go out and assume that something you're doing, regardless of, how it makes you feel, how it makes others feel, you're never going to please everybody. So, that's learning to live with some of that. I think the first couple times that people came back with critical feedback,
probably like, what the heck, dude? Like,
what's wrong? We can pick up trash. Like, but no, I think that's been,
There's always the naysayers. You have to have the naysayers to balance, right? You have to have the great balance. What is it? What is it in the movie? This is a classic movie. I don't know if you've seen. Like, I think it's The History of the World Part 2 or something. Like one of the first skits was first came the artist, and then like naturally came the critics, and it was like caveman era. Right, somebody like drew a caveman drawing on the wall, and then like a natural, response to the artist is the critic. So there's always the naysayers. I feel like it has to have that balance in the world.
That's right.
Yeah, that's so funny. Okay, so one other thing you mentioned that I think is really funny to bring up here is you almost were unable to pick up trash because of permitting reasons. I want to hear more about that.
So the District of Columbia compared to, other cities, so some things are federal, some things are district government. And, every type of government has some kind of, territory. And we were going to do a cleanup over some federal property. So we had submitted a permit to get permission to host our cleanup event. And the United States Park Police let us know. Told us that, hey, your permit for your event is denied, and the reason is the Parks Police contract a company to do something that similar kind of work, and contractually they're unable to solicit unpaid volunteers to do something that they pay somebody else to do. So our cleanup event is denied. He said, but if you want to have a protest, well, that's the First Amendment. I can't do anything about that. And the manner in which you choose to protest, that's up to you. So if you would like to move forward with a protest, it'll be approved and let me know if if that's what you want to do. So we, standing there, resubmitted a permit to have an anti-trash protest. And, the manner by which we chose to protest was we were going to pick up trash. And she was like, yeah, well, that's the First Amendment. You have every right to protest how you see fit.
That's awesome. Whoever that paper person is amazing. Kudos to that person who gave you that loophole.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, And we've come across that kind of the same situation a couple times. Yeah. And if, knowing that, hey, it's like, oh, we've got this like First Amendment card that we're just going to have a protest instead. And there was a moment with, it was the U.S. Capitol Police. They're like, all right, you get it. Like, you know how it goes. Yeah, all right. Like, same thing, we were doing a cleanup around the Capitol for our first anniversary. So last year, and the guy who was approving that permit was like, you guys are picking up trash? Come anytime you want. And like, I don't care what the permit says. Just come do this because it's needed. And I feel like it's just the most DC thing ever.
That's amazing. Yeah, man. I just feel like too, it makes you like just cleaning up like DC, especially like the main monuments I feel like it brings you closer to, and I don't know, maybe it's just me, again, putting myself in your shoes is I feel like it makes you appreciate and show your appreciation for your country more. Cause like DC is like the poster city of the US in a lot of, political sense. And so you could it brings you closer and it shows that you care and it makes the city cleaner and prettier, right? Because it's, that's what you guys are doing.
Especially when we're around some of like the more public areas, so especially on the mall, near monuments, things like that.
Yeah.
When we're out there with our buckets and our grabbers, everybody else behaves different. Everybody else makes sure that when we're around, like that they go and put their stuff in the trash. And that's that's great. And it's cool to get the folks that come by and say thank you and all that. Like that's great. But it's similar but different in some of the more residential areas. And I think so I totally agree with everything you're saying. And then I think the DC piece of it, when we go into whatever residential neighborhood, there's the bit of like, hey, like we haven't forgotten that you all live here and that this is a place that we want people to come to. And that piece of it is different, but it's I think just as cool.
Wow. Okay. This is great. What you all are doing is like, so our organization is called Greater Than 0%. So you mentioned that it's not much, but it's something. It's like, that's totally true. Like as long as you're adding greater than 0%, like the waves that you're creating, I'm sure have had impacts that you can't even know, right? Is somebody maybe not throwing something out, or somebody throwing something on the ground and actually throwing it out. That impact is really hard to measure, but I'm sure you've had it with thousands of people that other people have seen do this. So very honorable, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing in DC. Yeah. Well, great. So as we wrap up, usually I like to ask a question. We already covered where people could find you. Obviously, the type of engagement you look for is of course, volunteers or people that maybe come up with ideas or ask you how to replicate this model in their city or their district or their community. But is there anything you want to leave us with, whether it's something we didn't cover or any other insights you want to bring up as we close out here?
If you're in DC, swing by for a cleanup, first. And if you're not in DC, have a cleanup. Grab, you need the roll of trash bags from under your sink, and that's all it takes. Get some gloves if you need. Wash your hands regardless. That's the big takeaway. That marginal gains. It doesn't take much to pick stuff up. We just got to spend the time to do it. And I think people underestimate the kind of the individual aspect of picking up trash. That it's great for your community. It's great for the showing that you care about the place that you live and the other folks who live around you. But if I start on, one end of the street that has, trash on both sides, and I pick all the stuff up, I can look back and I can see the impact of my actions.
Yeah.
And that means something, and I've talked before about, I can go pick up, if I'm having a bad day, I can go pick up trash until I feel better, because I have that reminder that my impact matters, my actions matter. And if there's anything that, I would want to leave you guys with, it's that your actions matter, your impact matters. So go do it. And don't underestimate your ability to have a positive impact.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Brad, that's amazing. Really, really appreciate your time tonight. And we're honored to share the work that you're doing, the impact you're having. And we'll gladly share this story. So people listening, listen to Brad. Everything you said, I don't need to repeat it. But if you want to look for more information, districtcleanups.com, Instagram as well. And Brad, thanks you again so much for your time tonight.
Yeah. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning into this episode. If you know of a great organization or individual leaving a positive impact, we'd love to tell their story. Check us out and contact us at gtzp.org. Don't forget, for more stories like this, you could also follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Instagram followers are link trees in the bio. And for podcast listeners, we are on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Thanks for listening, and see you again soon.